Right, yeah, you're
I don't
obviously...
know, it's about to start circulating among the lizardmen gossip.
So, luckily, lizardmen speak lizardmen tongue, and only lizardmen understand that, for the most part. So, at least to the higher ups, my like skink leaders, not the Saurus, just the skinks, I will tell them and make sure they sort of perk up the ranks and make sure they're on their toes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Cool.
Petrov would want to speak to Cahill about his plans regarding announcing things to the army.
Okay. So maybe you hang back for a moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the tent kind of empties, and maybe Cahill kind of forgets you're there, because it's very easy to forget Arcadi is in places, because, he's basically invisible when he wants to be. And so maybe like for a moment you see him kind of drop his, like, not facade, but drop his demeanor, and like his shoulders slump, and he kind of like puts both elbows on the table and is like holding his head a little bit. And when you clear your throat or whatever, he kind of like looks up and he says, Ambassador Petrov, it is, I was unaware that you were still here.
Apologies. I must admit I am concerned about the impact on morale if you inform your armies that His Holiness Magnus the Pious, His Imperial Majesty, is dead days before we are to march on Middenheim.
He kind of like nods in agreement and he says, yes, but you've lived with the people of the Empire long enough to know that there are occasions where something such as this may inspire more than detract from. This is hopefully to be my approach.
And considering the company that we have just kept, we are not concerned that there will be other news concerning the Emperor in days to come?
I think, yeah, he probably looks a little bit troubled and says, as much influence as I have no control over what the Inquisition does or doesn't do. I can only hope that they do not make things worse.
I simply think that it would be prudent to consider alternative options if it is possible that the news that you intend to announce may be more complicated than originally expected, you see?
Yeah, and I think he kind of like nods at the wisdom of that. And he probably says, would you have any suggestions, Ambassador Petrov? I must say that this is a blow I was not expecting for some time to come.
Do you know anything further than what the Inquisitor shared thus far?
Yeah, and I think he... roll me a persuasion check. Because he might know. It's all about how much he's willing to share. A 15's pretty good.
You got the 30, though.
Foolish time to not use inspiration.
Foolish time not to use inspiration, yes.
Right.
So I think that a 15 gets you definitely a glimpse at least. He probably nods his head and he says, "What I know is purely rumors. I was hoping that perhaps there would be more time before we had to march in order to follow them up with contacts of my own, but it was said that it was perhaps the work of an assassin. One that does his work quite eloquently."
And slowly, if it has had anything to do with His Holiness's long sickness.
I think that was the intent. I do not think it was meant to be known that there was this foul doing. I think it was meant to look like simply wasting away. But I am obviously not the only one that did not believe this, and he kind of obviously motions to the Inquisitor being here, right?
Right. Well, I will, if you will keep me informed on anything further that you hear, I will endeavor to do the same, and...
Yeah, and
Sorry, coughing fit.
Yeah, no, I think that he, kind of, perhaps offhandedly says, and maybe, a little bit defensively, he probably says, "It is not that I wish to turn my uncle into a martyr, you understand. But I see no other way of preventing this from having an impact." And it seems to, kind of come out of nowhere, right? That's what you were talking about before, and it's weird that it pops up now, but it's almost like he's defending his decision a little bit, but it's probably the first time, and maybe not the first time, I don't know how Arkady feels about him, but probably the first time you see that this is one area that Cahill has very little experience with. Now, if you want, you could roll me a history check to see what you know about Cahill's family. Because the Emperor is his uncle, which means his father was the Emperor's brother.
Yeah, okay. Let's use that inspiration now.
Okay, there you go. I'm basically just giving you rolls to see if you can roll inspiration. Nice. You rolled well.
Didn't need it.
It's
You
okay.
wasted that.
It happens.
It happens. But a 25 is good. So what you know about the Cahills is that he's actually the Anthony's father, who was name was, let's say, Jonathan. Jonathan Cahill, so Anthony's father, was actually the older brother of Magnus. And it was seen as kind of an odd option that the Elector Counts decided to go with the younger brother of the two. But one thing that that Jonathan, Anthony's father, was never really a very influential person. Magnus was kind of always in the limelight a bit more, and always kind of doing the great deeds that are occurring and earning stability in the keep and stuff like that. And even though Magnus and Jonathan's father kind of favored Jonathan, Magnus was the one that clearly had the divine inspiration, right?
You can't name your kids Magnus and Jonathan and then be surprised when one of them is more of an emperor than the other.
Right, exactly. And so there were probably rumors at the time that Jonathan was a bit slighted by that, but it was said that it inspired him more than kind of brought him down. After Magnus was unable to do the things that he used to do, like ride into villages and go about the empire doing great deeds and stuff like that, Jonathan doubled down on it and began to take the reins of doing that, and earned a lot of renown in doing so. But probably more importantly, Cahill's parents, Jonathan and Isabel was his mother, while they were traveling on one of these expeditions, were beset by a clan of orcs, and while they fought valiantly, it's actually how they perished. They were actually killed by this clan of orcs, and it is at that time that Magnus, in one of his very rare fits of rages, kind of raised the armies and went on basically a culling spree throughout the mountain ranges and plains where the orcs resided. after the death of his brother, and his brother is kind of enshrined now as one of the greatest warriors of the Empire. But specifically, since you did roll a 25, specifically with Cahill, with Anthony, he was kind of taken under. He was probably about 13 at the time that his parents died, and the Emperor kind of took him as his own son because the Emperor and his wife were actually never able to conceive, for whatever reason, and so Magnus, as a cherishment to his brother, kind of took Cahill under his wing and began training him, and it's probably the reason why Cahill has a lot of training and a lot of formality and a lot of influence already, right? Because he's basically seen as the son of the Emperor. So this anger or resentment or whatever is probably coming from the fact that Anthony has not only lost one set of parents now, but has lost basically two sets of parents now. And so his kind of... there's some like stress going on up there, and it's causing him to not react probably accordingly in what he should be doing.
Right, so Petrov will take, half a second to recall and consider all of that. And say to him, I think that your uncle, His Imperial Majesty, my apologies, would be only too happy to think that his memory would be used to win another glorious victory for the Empire. You'd be doing him a favor and doing him proud.
Yeah, and I think that Anthony probably thinks long and hard for a moment. And he begins to nod and he says, Yes, I believe you are correct. Very well. Perhaps we will talk later on the plan of action. For now, let us break camp and head to Middenstag.
Of course. If I may ask, the High Priestess of Altdorf, Lady Ashriver, she was not present.
Yeah, and I think Cahill probably says, he considers for a moment and he says, yes, the Priestess of Shalia. Well, I thought it's more appropriate that the one who serves the god of death be present for this announcement. Although, would you suggest that her involvement would assist this endeavor?
I would suggest that she may have more interest in the morale of the army than certain other involved individuals. And yeah, I think Petra probably makes a sort of wine-drinking motion there.
Sure, yeah, yeah, absolutely. Cahill tries to stifle a chuckle, and he kind of like, yes. Perhaps this is good. I will see to her now. Thank you, Arkady.
Be well, Lord Cahill.
And he kind of like lifts the flap for you to exit and exits himself and splits off in a different direction. So we flash back over to Morella and Farron and Hannibal. You guys have all... Well, Hannibal, I don't know. Maybe you're still asleep because you've been staying up late and doing things.
Fuck no. Late to bed, early to rise. That's how Hannibal lives.
Okay. Let me know when I need to start implying exhaustion on you. But the three of you... Well, actually, to be fair, Hannibal, you were gravely injured yesterday.
That is true. I'd probably still be asleep. Speaking of which, can I roll... How does the... I forget. Do I get hit dice back and then I roll, or do I roll then get hit dice back?
You roll and then get... Or no, you get hit dice and then you roll.
Okay, I'm going to be rolling some.
Yeah, because otherwise you'd be able to roll hit dice and then immediately gain them back. So yeah, you get half of your hit dice back.
That's not
Okay.
bad.
Hold on. Wait, I'm doing math. 14, 20, 27.
It's 27.
51. Oh shit, I'm still not up. D6! Don't fail me now! No. Fuck it, it's good enough.
It's good enough.
I like to use my
You'll be healed
inspiration.
by tomorrow, basically.
I like to use my inspiration on a hit dice roll.
Just think it's only a D20
if,
roll.
If you want to use your inspiration, I'll let you roll another hit dice.
No, it's fine.
Okay, all right. Just checking. Just checking if you wanted to do that. So the camp, or I should say, what are Morella and Farron? We'll go to you guys. And Farron, you're probably staying in a tent close by to Morella nowadays because you're become her retainer at your own. We
heard that, Slit.
Hey,
Yeah.
my rewards at the end of it is going to be big enough to endure.
Right, yeah, totally.
Actually, I think they would both be sleeping in the same tent.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean,
So-
it only makes sense. He can't be out of her sight, and vice versa. Because who else is going to protect Morella when she's sleeping? He has to be up for it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that you wake up before Farron does, almost in almost all cases.
I do, but that's not
Um,
the point.
So, what do the two of you do with your morning while everything's getting broken down and everything like that?
While this is all happening, we see actually Morella and Farron actually at another tent where the scribes were before. And we see Morella perhaps getting a little belligerent with her words as she is telling, quote unquote, where's the list that I asked for?
Okay. Yeah, I think that the scribes probably produced something that looks kind of like the list. But again, there were quite a few losses, and so they don't have all the names. Like I said, most of the people that died were probably melted by molten lava, so they were not really easily identified.
Right.
But the
It's
ones that
whatever.
were, you're
Yeah.
probably handed a scroll with a list of their names.
Yeah, as she kind of like just looks over, though, like, because they said about like maybe 50, 60 individuals, and she's only seen probably half of that.
Yeah, probably half
Maybe.
of that. Yeah, there's probably like 20, 25 names on the list.
Yeah, and she looks mad at this, and
Yeah,
but
I think with her being mad, because I think Farron probably steps up to try to keep the situation as calm as possible after last time. So it's we thank you for the list you've given us already. If you could give the remainder of the list at some other time, that would be most helpful, scribes.
Then you like begin to ferry Morella out of the tent.
Yeah.
yeah, and as you ferry me out, I just kind of like maybe glare at you for a moment before like relaxing and sighing heavily as she's like, come, let us go see the injured now.
Yes, my lady.
Perhaps Aelin could give me a report. As she begins heading over to where she thinks Aelin is.
Okay. Yeah, so you arrive at the hospital, basically, right? That Aelin's been kind of setting up. And when you arrive there, you see that basically all of the injured are being prepared for travel right now. And that's like a whole process. Like there has to be litters made, and there has to be like
wagons and
carts and wagons have to be like supplies have to be emptied out of a wagon so that the injured can be loaded on. You know, there may even be some people that are going to be left behind because they're just if you travel with them, they might just die. And so everything's like being coordinated, and you kind of search, you mill through like the nurses and doctors that are running around and the priests and priestesses that are running around. And kind of at the center of all this, you see Daniela, actually. she's kind of up, and she looks like she hasn't gotten much sleep in the past couple of days. But she's kind of up and like directing people around. And so maybe you go flag her down.
Yeah.
And she kind of comes up and she says, "Oi, Farron and Morella, it is good to see you. Have you come to help?"
She kind of like looks and she nods and she's like, in a sense, where's Lady Ash River?
I think she kind of looks and she says, "The Lady Ash River is resting. She is not to be disturbed."
Fine. Then I need you to tell her this.
Be on with it.
And like, probably like someone bumps into her and she like gives like a scowl look before trying to like suppress her anger. As she's like, I need full reports on every injured soldier.
I think she's like, ha ha ha. You must be
I am
daft,
not kidding.
Lady Fairheart.
No. I'm serious.
Yeah, and I think that she kind of like puzzledly looks at you, and then probably looks at Farron. Farron, what's the look on your face?
It's that kind of...
Are your hands in your pockets, like whistling and looking away, or?
Yeah. I think I would chime up again. Aye, of course. At the moment it is compiled, then, of course, that is when we wish for the information.
Yeah, and I think that she looks at you kind of dumbfounded, and she says, "I will tell her, but you will not like the answer."
Yeah, and there's kind of like a clench of teeth. Just tell her.
Yeah, and she kind of just like looks at you, and maybe there's like the slightest shake of her head, and then she looks past you and she's like, "Oi, you over there! No, don't load!" And she like kind of like pushes past you, and you see her like going to help them load this elderly gentleman onto a litter, and she kind of breaks the conversation off at that, leaving the two of you standing there and like the mass of people around.
Yeah. As Morella then just kind of like shakes her head a bit. She's like, now, where is Petrov?
So you begin to look around, and like you're maybe you start headed off towards where Petrov typically stays. And Farron, Hannibal catches your eye. He looks like there are a couple of nurses kind of standing around. They kind of break away, and you can see Hannibal's face. And he appears to be asleep, resting, and you see his leg is like splinted up and, all bandaged and stuff like that. What do you do?
I quietly walk over to his bed. And then I just one motion poke his injured leg.
Oh, fuck you!
Yeah, just like you shoot sitting up.
Oh,
your leg.
fuck!
Hey, what'd you get yourself into this time, Hannibal?
What? Oh shit, it's you. Well, I didn't do anything too crazy this time. I was investigating some ruins, a bunch of rocks fell on me, and I decided then was the appropriate time to investigate.
We just get an image, because this is the show, right? We get the image of like the blood trailed all over the grounds, and like just inside the tomb.
I love that thought too. I thought about this later. There's some ruins on the ground. What does Hannibal do? He fills them in with his blood. So yeah. But check this out. I got this sweet, and then I point like to the side. There's a gigantic, amazing great axe. I got that though.
How much martial training have you had, Hannibal?
How much what? Marshall? Oh, none. That's mine, though.
Ah, I see. Well, you're only being a nuisance to the nurses here, so get up quickly.
And so I kind of get up. Oh, shit.
There you go.
That's
Fair.
the best healing word I've ever made.
You know what's amazing about that?
It gets him to full health.
It's just enough.
Yeah.
So then, like, I just stand up, grab my axe, sling it on my back like a badass, except not. It looks really fucking stupid as shit.
You wobble to the side and like slam into like a post and have to like right yourself because it's so heavy.
Meant to do that.
So you're like still getting used to it and you like slap it. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wielded by the great warrior Groken. So where are we going, guys? I'm bored.
Yeah, at this point we hear shouting as we hear Farron.
Yeah.
You know what? Never mind. I don't want to be a part of that.
Aye, lucky for you.
Have fun. Have fun, Morella's new friend.
So yeah, I head back over.
Mm-hmm.
As we see Merlot almost kind of impatiently waiting as she eventually begins leading the way to what she thinks she would find Petrov at.
Mm-hmm. Both of you roll me perception checks.
Oh boy. No, I'm not going to use my inspiration, so I'll just regular roll it. Here we go.
Holy shit, Farron.
Think like Petra, be like.
Yeah, so Morella's just like fuming, right? So like her ears, the blood is, she just hears the blood pumping in her ears. Farron, as you pass a couple of people kind of talking, you pick up a couple of words that people are saying, like, you hear like, there's the Inquisitor. And then like a little bit, like maybe you like frown and like look, and the people that were saying that kind of walk away. And then you hear like a little bit further down the path, you hear like, what's he doing here? And then like, you know, again they kind of walk away as you're kind of like walking around, and then as you're kind of like scanning the tents, right? You see that there appears to be a couple of horses that are kind of lashed, where in like the noble area, because you're going up to see Arcadi, right? Kind of in the noble area, there's a couple of horses that are lashed, and like you kind of squint to see that far, and you see that there is in the blanket drapery that goes underneath the saddle to protect the horses from the chafing, you see that there is a little red shepherd's crook in the corner of one, and you know what that symbol means. It's the Inquisitors, right? And so now you know that they're here, and now you've dealt with them before as well.
Yeah.
It wasn't my fault.
Do you say anything to Morella, or do you just continue walking to Arcadi and kind of keep it to yourself for now?
Yeah, I think I think we should hurry up to find him.
Why do you say that, Farron? She like looks over her shoulder.
You'll find out soon enough. Come
on. So I guess the question is, where do they find you, Arcadi? It's post-meeting for you.
Right, so it might be reasonable for him to be found in his tent, just because he doesn't want to project any idea that there might be something unusual going on.
So did you give any instructions to Kira and Malia, though, when you entered? Or are they just doing their normal
Nothing
thing?
unusual,
Okay.
No. Everything is totally normal. I don't know what you're talking about.
Right, totally. So I think that Kira pokes her head in and says, Ambassador, Morella and I'm sorry. Lady Fairheart and Farron are here to see you.
Magnificent. Send them in. Quick question. Do I know about Morella's failed diplomacy / debacle with Cahill?
I mean, it's not fail.
So,
He failed, technically.
roll me an insight check to see if you found that out post fact. Or actually, hold on. Let me back that up. Farron, would you have told Arkady at any point between last night and now? Would you have found him and reported to him? Or were you dutiful in staying with Morella the whole time?
Yeah, how short of a leash is Morella holding on?
Okay, so yeah, you probably don't know then, Arkady.
Okay, so I know about their battle with the Harpies and security.
Yeah, you know the basics, but that thing was... Farron's basically the only one that noticed that, so if he didn't tell you, then you wouldn't know.
Gotcha. Okay.
So they enter,
So-
though, they're allowed in.
Yeah, and Petrov just waved to them. Farron, Lady Fairheart, it's good to see you still doing well.
I suppose, though I am in a very irritable mood this morning.
How unexpected. What brings this on?
And she sighs and she kind of like slumps in probably like a chair that you have nearby, and she just weighs her head heavy and she's like, there is... I'm doing what you asked. You advised me earlier. To ask people for assistance matters. But why is it that everyone cannot do what I ask? Why is it? It is just simple requests. Nothing more.
Have you considered what they have to gain from this?
She kind of just...
For them to do what is simply what is asked of you because it is what you asked, this is what Emperor wields. This is your goal, but this is not where you are.
She nods and she's just like, I suppose that I'm not giving anything. I'm just asking people. Perhaps it is wrong to ask of people.
Remind me how old she is?
She's about 28.
Oh my god.
You man-child.
What seems to be trouble right now? Petrov is sort of looking to Farron here to try to judge what's been going on lately. So, on a level of 1 to taking back to Kislev, how exhausted is Farron with his job of late?
Yeah, there's a very sullen look over Farron's face. Of course, I get enough sleep when she allows me. Yeah.
If you need more sleep, just stay so, Farron.
What seems to be the trouble you're facing now? Who needs motivating to assist you?
I just need reports. That's all. Reports on the injured, reports on the well-being of the soldiers, of our losses. Who am I supposed to write?
Seems a worthy use of time. Surely these reports exist. It's only a matter of being on the list of people who receive them, yes?
I suppose. Am I wrong to think this way? To worry so much?
To worry over the well-being of your soldiers? No, of course not. His backbone.
She kinda like takes a deep breath and she's like, then I'm just simply not working hard enough. That's it, right? And she like looks at you with like slightly a deranged look.
Possibly this is If you are not writing letters, someone would be. So perhaps find place within organization and feel role, rather than making role for yourself, yes?
But if I don't do it, then who will?
That is first question to answer.
I don't feel anyone would do it if it's not me.
Feelings may be misleading on this point.
I do not know who to ask.
Petrov just sort of gestures at Farron. This is why we have ears in places that we have never thought to go.
She nods as she looks
I'm
over at
sure-
Farron.
You must realize the quality of skills that you are acquiring with the compensation that you offer him.
Yes, I know this. I did
Looking over
ask.
to Farron and his terrified deer in headlights eyes. Is he actually getting paid at all right now?
Do you say that out loud?
No, he's trying to gauge that from looking at Farron.
I mean, considering how little you've paid me over the years.
Yes, additionally, Farron, there is a stipend from Kislev for you on table there.
Alright.
Yes, is settling of accounts of some kind. And he gestures to a chest that he's left on a side table. You know how to pick locks, right?
Of course I do.
Yeah, so it's locked. There's no key.
Yeah, I'm immediately opening that up.
Yeah, he'll find about 400 gold in there.
As is going on, Morello just simply gets up, and when she stands up, she actually wobbles a bit before standing firm, and she's like, "Thank you, Petrov."
Glad to be of assistance. Do you need to see healers? Have you recovered from your battle with harpies?
Oh, I didn't receive a scratch. Nor
Most
did
impressive.
Farron. And, I should be off though. Farron, when you're ready, just meet me back at my tent.
Possibly have something to eat. Red meat.
Oh, I suppose I should do that. I don't think I did that yesterday. And then she leaves, but before she leaves, or the day before. And then she leaves the tent.
You know,
Does Farron hang back for a moment?
yeah. You know, Petrov, I was never that great at secretarial work.
So, what?
I was never that great at secretarial work.
No.
Is not your strongest point, I would grant. She has you writing things.
Yes. A lot of writing. You've known the letters always look jumbled up to me.
Is true. This is not ideal use of your talents.
Anyway,
She is valuable asset to Empire, Farron, but for her own good, she cannot be Emperor.
I think I'm a bit taken back at that statement for all the effort we initially put in.
Someone's converting.
Petrov, you do realize what you're saying, correct?
I am not intending to take stance on matter. I am simply acknowledging there are machinations at work of many kinds, and she is she is wearing herself to ground, trying to write letters to families of fallen. She can barely stand. This is not a woman, no matter how strong or diligent, who can lead empire at a time like this.
It's a time like this, you say, Petrov?
As we march on Middenheim, yes, at a time like this.
I suppose I agree to you somewhat. But anyway, do you know why the Inquisitors are here?
Ah. Yes.
Guys, I leave for an hour and there's Inquisitors.
Hour and a half. Hour and a half.
God
I'm
damn
sorry. I blew up a tent.
Not
too.
see, not just any Inquisitors though.
The High Inquisitor.
Yeah, the High Inquisitor.
I blew up like 5 tents. Sorry.
There was a big secret meeting, and you were literally the only High Priest not invited. It was really actually sad. Like,
It was.
serious social slight. It was harsh. It's too bad. I asked.
I thought it was Dickister Jordan too, but you know.
It's okay, I sent your boyfriend to you. Anyway, the Emperor's dead.
I apologize. Continue.
Yeah, no, it's cool. Yeah, I think Petrov is going to consider for a moment. He's like, shut right as always. The Inquisitor was intending not to be noticed, but when are they ever? Yes, grim news from the capital. Apparently, there may have been assassins responsible for the Emperor's long sickness. They have little to say except, of course, to conjure up further concerns and troubles for us. Unlikely to share answers anytime soon, I suspect.
Whew. Are you sure that we should still be in this part of the Empire then?
The possibility has occurred to me that we are needed elsewhere, but I suspect between the various hopefuls, the next emperor, whenever they may ascend to the throne, will be chosen in this battle.
Aye, that does seem true. Alright, well, I suppose I better go back and put on a brave face.
To note, Petrov very specifically did not mention the Emperor being dead.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Okay.
I noted it.
Yeah.
There's just trouble in the capital.
Trouble.
Assassins.
Trouble.
And,
I mean, for our line of work, that just counts as regular trouble.
yeah. Although people try to assassinate the Emperor, I mean, rude.
Rude, indeed.
Regardless, I trust you will find good use for your payments. And I hope it will sustain you in the travails of working with Lady Fairheart. She may be noble and you may not have title, but you will not be afraid to advise her more directly if you feel she is flying completely off hinge, yes?
I don't really know. I have a new sense of vigor after my prolonged payments.
Magnificent.
So we flash over to another part of the encampment. Aelin, hi, hello.
By the way, I'm there, so have fun dealing with me.
Daniela has restricted you to your tent. And actually to the point of placing guards outside so that nobody could come in or you couldn't leave.
So what have I missed exactly?
Nothing, and that's the point. So you are probably awake, and probably maybe pacing inside of the tent or whatever you're doing. You've been told that until it is time to leave, you are to stay there. By Daniela, and Daniela's going to take care of things because you've been working yourself to death. And so, in your angst, you hear muffled talking coming from outside the flap of your tent, and then kind of all of a sudden it opens, and you can see Cahill is standing there. And the tent flap kind of closes behind him, and he looks at you. And roll me an insight check.
If you have inspiration.
Wait, why do I have inspiration?
Okay.
I don't have inspiration.
Bummer.
Yeah, doesn't it suck?
Yeah, a little bit.
Why are we whispering?
I don't know.
I don't know, you started that, but
I don't know what I'm rolling anymore.
insight.
Insight check. Okay. Here we go.
Not great. So what do you do when you see him?
I think I'm just upset that I can't leave, and I know I have so much to do, and so I'm focused more on myself, unfortunately. So I'm like, I think if he walks in, I say, "Can you please speak with Daniela? She's saying I can't leave. I don't know why. There's people I need to get to."
Perfect. So you say that, not having picked up on his demeanor when he entered. And finally the visual effects begin to occur, and you see that tears are streaming down his face, and he's just standing there silently, kind of biting his lip. But you didn't pick up on the waves of sadness coming from him when he walked through the tent flap. You instead spoke harshly to him.
So I obviously not being able to miss that even with a
9.
even with the freaking 9. Aylin's demeanor immediately changes to caregiver and walks over and takes both of his hands in hers and looks him right in the face and just says, "What is wrong? What did I miss?"
Yeah, and he kind of for a moment seems to steel himself, and he says, He's dead.
Who's dead?
My uncle.
Your uncle? What happened? Come, sit down. And I would motion to go.
Yeah. Yeah, and you pull him over and he kind of sits down and he kind of places his hands on his face. And he's like, "I don't know. The Inquisitor is here. He's going to speak with people."
I think that Aylin goes to take away one of the hands from his face and puts a hand on his back, and she just says, It's going to be all right, you know that."
Yeah, and I think he kind of falls into it a little bit, right? He's a pretty hulking figure, so he kind of rests a head on your shoulder, and maybe you sit there for a long minute, and he says, he kind of finishes, and he kind of wipes his face, and he clears his throat, and he says, "I apologize, I did not invite you to the meeting this morning. That it was selfish of me."
You know it's all right. I trust your judgment. I understand now you must have had a lot on your mind.
Yes, well, in fact, your friend, Ambassador Petrov, told me that I should I should come and present this to you so that you may help decide how we are to tell the people. No one knows yet, save for me and a few of the members of the council.
Yes, it was best for you to keep it that way for now. Unfortunately, I have done this thing a time or two. I will handle it. You don't have to worry about it anymore.
Yeah, and he kind of nods and he says, I have also spoken with High Priest Garthun. And you don't know who that is, but, well, you do. You as Megan don't know who that is. High Priest Garthun is the High Priest of Mor that's here. And as I've described a couple of times, but just for reiteration, they kind of rub against the grain with Shalia on a lot of things. They're the guys who they worship the god of the dead, right? God of Mor or Mor. And they are the ones who help individuals pass into the afterlife. And they see, like, acts of divine intervention and healing to be kind of faux pas. To be not with the keeping of the cycle of life, right? Like, when you're dying, it's your time to die, and that's the thing that you should do. And they hate anything. The only thing they hate worse than anything else is undeath. And so, you know, they would be the first ones to call out somebody who was, like, reanimated or resurrected, right? Things like that. So, he says, I spoke with him this morning. He said that he would prepare what he has. Perhaps you should coordinate with him in some regard.
Yes, I will go speak to him right away. Don't you worry.
Okay, yeah. He kind of, like, nods his head, and he pulls you into an embrace. When you release, he kind of holds you at arm's length. And he gives you a smile, which is probably his roguish smile when you know he's being perhaps a bit brazen. And he gives you a wink, and he says, "Don't worry, Dove, I'll be back."
I never doubted it for a moment.
Yeah, and he turns and he leaves the tent.
Yeah, and I think Elin watches him go, but then sits there and actually reacts to the information that he just gave her, because obviously she was trying to be all brave-faced and not really think about what he said. And I think she just stews on it for a few moments and probably doesn't leave the tent unless Daniela comes to get her and snaps her out of it.
Yeah, there is probably there is probably a Jackson, I'll actually address that real quick. I don't think you've ever been inside before.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. That's the only thing about that.
Okay.
But Daniela probably does get you maybe mid-morning, early afternoon, when everybody's basically, like, all carted up and ready to move out towards Middenstag. And Daniela probably throws the tent flap back kind of haphazardly. And you can see she's sweating from the early afternoon sun kind of beating down, and she's been working. Her face is kind of flushed. And she kind of walks in and she says, "Well, you're off of house arrest."
And I think that Aelin doesn't even look up, because as she comes back in, she probably sees her and she has her books and papers open, and I think she's already taking notes. And I think that this is a very natural thing for her to see Aelin doing. Like, she's seen her do it 1,000 times as whenever she's prepping some sort of sermon.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, so she doesn't even look up. She just keeps writing and, like, referencing books and things. And she just says, yes, I know. I'm almost done here. Are we already moving out?
Soon, yes. Most of the things are packed. The hospital is torn down now. All who can be moved will be. The rest will be staying here in Delbers.
Good, yes, I will check in with them right after I go check with the priest. Have you seen him yet about, or should I go ask of him?
You're looking for Garthun?
Correct.
Yeah. She's like, no, a couple of his subordinates for those that passed in the night, but other than that, no, I haven't seen him.
Alright, I will go find him myself then. And I think at that moment she realizes that she hasn't asked how Daniela was, and stops and just says, how are you in all this?
To be frank, Your Holiness, I feel like shit.
Condemn her.
It is no wonder that you have been having such struggles with these people. Most of them are simple-minded and cannot follow simple directions.
But they are trying so hard. You can't be so harsh with them, Daniela.
She kind of laughs. She's like, ha, trying so hard. Yes, well, if I got everything for everything I tried so hard at, I would be the richest maiden in all of the land, and I would have the best sword skills of all of them, and I would have slain 5 dragons by now.
We know, we understand. Are you quite done? Because I do need to go.
Yeah, and I think she kind of just shakes her head and opens up the tent flap for you to pass by her.
Oh, thank you so much. Reminds me that you need to finish your rants when I return.
I think she says, oh, have no doubts. We have a long road ahead.
She just smiles and nods, clearly jokingly, and then just leaves.
Yeah. And you leave and you head over to... You notice that it's kind of like that weird instance where you were inside for a very long time and then things outside have changed so drastically. You can see...
Yeah, I'm probably all turned around.
Yeah, most of the area around you is cleared and the tents have been packed up and everything is kind of settled and, you know, the horses are neighing and there's big track marks in the ground and none of it looks exactly like it did just the previous night before. And you can tell some of the caravan has already like started to move out, like the slower carts and stuff have already left, because the rest of the bulk of the army will catch up as they pass them. And so yeah, you eventually find your way over to where the priests of Moor are, and there are quite a few priests and priestesses of Moor here. Surprisingly, the priests and priestesses of Moor don't take on a whole lot of paladins. There are a few scattered about, but mostly it is mostly there are just priests and priestesses. And you can see there are some who are like still saying rites over perhaps those that passed in the night. And eventually you find one of them and you ask him where Garthun is, and they kind of look at you and they say, "Ah, yes, Your Holiness, he is this way. Come, I will show you." And you feel like maybe they're treating you with respect, but like a child almost. And they bring you over to the high priest, and he's kind of he's sitting at a table that was clearly inside of a tent at one point, and the tent has been removed, and he's just sitting there, and you can see him kind of like twirling a quill between his fingers. And he has, I described him just a second ago, he has the big staff of Moor, which has a raven on the top of it. And he's an older man, early 70s, big long beard. He looks like he was woken up very early this morning. Just kind of has that look to him. And as you walk up, his eyes raise and he says, "Oh, yes. Priestess of Shalia, how may I be of assistance?"
She gives like a, slight deferential bow. She's in his quote-unquote house, as it were. And just says, I know you're probably rather busy, but I do feel that this is important that we speak about the... She kind of pauses, thinking of what to call it, and says, proceedings that need to take place quite soon.
I think, yeah, he kind of arcs an eyebrow and he says, "Oh, my eyes must have deceived me. I did not see you in attendance. Someone has been spilling the beans, as it were."
Yes, I was busy. But no matter, I am informed now. So. And I think she kind of pauses for him to go on.
Yeah, and then he goes, well, this is something not done in the open, and he kind of like looks around and he says, perhaps we will speak ceremony on the road. Come, walk with me. And he kind of like creaks out of his chair, and he walks with kind of a hunch, so he's kind of like leaned forward and leans very heavily on his staff of Moor, which you notice, and you have an eye for these kind of things. It looks ancient. It's made out of some, maybe it's metal, but it appears to be hollow, because if it were solid metal, he wouldn't be able to carry it because it would be super heavy. But it's either painted white or lacquered white, and the raven that sits on top of it looks almost like it's alive. And very clearly you can tell that this thing is, first of all, archaic, as I said, but also this appears to be a powerful artifact of some sort. And rumors of the priests of Moor that have very strong powers over the undead and etc. and stuff like that. Moor is seen as a neutral deity, and the High Priest of Moor, he is of the same ranking as you as far as the tiers of important people go, but he's also your elder by like 50 years, right? So he's probably got a fair amount of clout under that graying beard of his. And as you begin to walk, he walks very slowly, and every other step is punctuated by the staff striking the ground. And whenever it hits a rock, it kind of gives this dull clunk, 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 as he's walking. And you find a secluded spot away where a bunch of tents have already been cleared. And the grass is trampled from all of the people and horses and things and carts that have gone by. And you see he kind of gazes down and he says, lucky for us that the priestesses of Tal are not here. They would have a field day about this.
I think that and then just kind of looks at him, and she doesn't like participating in, the bad mouthing of
Sure.
others.
Yep.
And so I think she just skirts over it like he didn't say anything.
Mm-hmm.
And just starts with, so what have you prepared so far?
He probably says, he's like, well, if you didn't know, I was around during the time of the Emperor prior to Magnus. May Sigmar rest in peace. Or may Sigmar take him and rest in peace. I remember the sermon that was given both by all of the priests, Sigmar not least among them. I feel as though Moor has accepted the Emperor may forever have peace far sooner than just this recent news. But speaking of His Holiness's pious nature, as was his namesake, is what he says. He says, I feel is more apt.
Yes, I quite agree. I have written a few things, and I think she pulls, a couple of the papers out, and she says, I don't mind giving them to you, or if you'd like to work on one together. I do think we should act as a united front, though. Show the people we are in this together.
Yeah, and I think he probably takes it and squints and begins to read it, and as he's reading it, he says, he's like, the Lord Cahill, I believe he means to make a martyr out of his uncle. And he kind of his eyes shift to you for a moment to gauge your reaction, and then back to reading the paper.
I don't think that's quite the course I hope to take. Not really making comment one way or the other on Cahill's choices.
Right, yeah, and I think he says, do you believe it to be a bad plan? It would avoid a lot of the unnecessary mourning that the people so longingly have for their deceased.
I believe that is an important part of grieving, although I've never been one for making, and I think she kind of ponders a moment. Martyrs where there isn't one.
Too true. I assume that you've also heard news of its, well, cause. And again, shifts eyes to you and then goes back to reading the paper.
Unfortunately, I've heard a few things that I wish I didn't know.
Yeah, and I think he just kind of like nods and grunts. And he says, this is good. It is flowery, but we can work with it. Perhaps this should be a time of unification, as you say.
And as you say, if you would like the mourning process to go quicker, this is the way to do it.
Yes, perhaps. Well, I suppose my retainers will come and put me on a horse or cart in very short order. Perhaps you should find yours the same.
Here, I will leave these with you, and just leaves the papers that she has and says, if there's anything else I can do, you'll know where to find me. Thank you for listening.
Yes. And thank you for your attendance, High Priestess. Perhaps we will work together at another time.
She nods and just says, blessings, and takes off.
Yeah, and we see him kind of watch you as you leave, and kind of squinted a little bit, kind of eyeing you, and you see him just kind of nod and scroll up the papers very slowly and stuff them in his robe and begin clunk, clunk as he marches back towards his tents. And I think that as we see the caravan begin to get underway, everybody is kind of whipped into shape and moving along. It's a perfect time to take a break.
Yay.
Cool. Let's be back at, can we do a 6-minute break? Be back at 10 after?
Sure. And by the way, Jordan?
Yes.
Here. This is for future clarification.
Oh, okay. So you don't have to actually see it. Okay, cool.
I'd never even have to have been there.
Gotcha. I thought you had to see it, like other things of its.
No. I think that's what's supposed to set Dimension Door apart. Is that you could literally go fucking anywhere as long as it's within 500 feet.
Okay.
End up inside a wall.
Yep. Cool.
That's the risk.
Indeed. Okay.
That's fine. It's just for future.
Absolutely. And we will be back in just a few minutes.
Okay.